Anna, dear, would you mind fetching Richard's medication? He's looking a bit peaky. Patricia's shrill voice cut through the quiet of the living room. I glanced up from the book I'd been reading to Richard, who was dozing in his favorite armchair. His complexion did seem a shade paler than usual. Of course, Patricia. I'll get it right away. As I rose, Mark breezed into the room, barely acknowledging his father's presence. Mother, have you seen my golf clubs? The guys are waiting for me at the country club. I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to remind him of his father's doctor's appointment. Instead, I hurried to the kitchen where we kept Richard's pills, my mind racing. How had I ended up here, playing nurse and peacekeeper to this family? It had all happened so fast. One minute, I was living my quiet life in our small town, and the next, I was swept up in a whirlwind romance with Mark. At least, that's what I thought it was. Now, 6 months into living under the same roof as my new husband and his parents, I was beginning to see cracks in the facade. I returned with Richard's medication and a glass of water, gently rousing him. Here you go, Richard. It's time for your pills. He blinked awake, his roomy eyes focusing on me with genuine warmth. Thank you, Anna. You're an angel, you know that. Patricia scoffed from across the room. Don't coddle him, Anna. He's perfectly capable of taking his own medication. I ignored her, helping Richard sit up straighter. As I handed him the pills, his papery hand brushed against mine, and he leaned in close. I don't know what we'd do without you, my dear. Certainly not what Mark and Patricia would have us believe. His words sent a chill down my spine. What did he mean by that? Before I could ask, Mark reappeared, golf bags slung over his shoulder. Found them, he announced triumphantly. I'm off. Don't wait up. Mark, I called out. Don't forget your father's appointment tomorrow. The doctor wanted to discuss his test results. Mark waved a dismissive hand. You can handle it, can't you? That's why you're here, after all. The door slammed behind him, leaving me stunned. Is that really why I was here? Just to be a caretaker? Patricia's voice dripped with disdain. Well, don't just stand there gawking. There's laundry to be done and dinner to prepare. Honestly, Anna, sometimes I wonder if you have any sense at all. I swallowed hard, fighting back tears. This wasn't the life I had envisioned when I said, I do to Mark. Come to think of it, when exactly had we gotten married? The details seemed fuzzy, lost in a whirlwind of events that had led me here. As I moved towards the laundry room, my cell phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from my father, Daniel. Hey, sweetie, haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay? Love, Dad. My fingers hovered over the keys. Should I tell him about the growing unease in the pit of my stomach? The way Mark's indifference and Patricia's cruelty were slowly crushing my spirit? Before I could respond, Patricia's voice rang out again. Anna, where are you? These clothes won't wash themselves. I quickly typed out a reply to Dad. Everything's fine. Just busy. Talk soon. As I pocketed my phone and headed to face another round of Patricia's demands, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. What had I gotten myself into? And more importantly, how was I going to get out? I woke to the sound of Patricia's shrill voice echoing through the house. Anna, where's my breakfast? I swear, that girl is absolutely useless. Groaning, I glanced at the clock. 6:30 a.m. I'd been up late helping Richard with his breathing exercises, but heaven forbid Patricia let me sleep in. As I hurried downstairs, I nearly collided with Mark in the hallway. He barely looked up from his phone. Oh, Anna. Mother's in one of her moods. You might want to hurry. I bit back a retort. When wasn't Patricia in a mood? In the kitchen, I found her tapping her foot impatiently. Finally, I was beginning to think you'd run off in the night. Not that we'd miss you, of course. I forced a smile. Good morning, Patricia. What would you like for breakfast? Poached eggs on toast. And make sure the yolks are runny this time. Last week's eggs were an absolute disaster. As I prepared her meal, my mind wandered to the text from my father. I hadn't replied yet, unsure of what to say. How could I explain that my perfect marriage was anything but? Patricia's voice cut through my thoughts. Oh, and Anna? Richard needs his bath today. Make sure you do it properly this time. The last thing we need is for him to catch a chill because of your incompetence. I gripped the spatula tightly, willing myself not to snap. Of course, Patricia. I'll take care of it. Just then Mark strolled in, briefcase in hand. I'm off to work. Don't forget, Mother. We have that dinner with the Johnsons tonight. Patricia clapped her hands. Oh yes. Anna, you'll need to prepare something impressive. The Johnsons are very particular about their food. I frowned. But what about Richard? He can't be left alone all evening. Mark waved dismissively. He'll be fine for a few hours. Just make sure he has his medication before we leave. But Patricia cut me off. That's enough, Anna. We pay you to take care of things, not question our decisions. Pay me? Since when was I an employee? I opened my mouth to argue, but Mark was already out the door, and Patricia had turned her attention to the newspaper. Feeling defeated, I trudged upstairs to check on Richard. I found him struggling to get out of bed. Here, let me help you, I said, rushing to his side. He smiled gratefully. Thank you, my dear. I don't know what I'd do without you. As I helped him to the bathroom, he lowered his voice. Anna, I need to talk to you about something important. It's about the company. Before he could continue, Patricia's voice rang out from downstairs. Anna, where are you? These floors won't clean themselves. Richard sighed. Later, my dear. We'll talk later. Throughout the day, Patricia's demands were relentless. By the time evening rolled around, I was exhausted. As Mark and Patricia prepared to leave for their dinner, I made one last attempt to reason with them. Are you sure it's okay to leave Richard alone? What if he needs something? Mark rolled his eyes. He's a grown man, Anna. Stop fussing. As they walked out the door, Patricia turned back. Oh, and Anna? Make sure you polish the silver while we're gone. It's looking rather dull. The moment they left, I sank onto the couch, fighting back tears. How had my life come to this? I wasn't a wife. I was a servant. And Mark wasn't the man I thought I'd married. Suddenly, I heard a thud from upstairs, followed by a weak cry. Anna, help. My heart racing, I sprinted up the stairs. Richard lay crumpled on the floor, his face ashen. As I dialed 911 with shaking hands, one thought kept repeating in my mind. Something had to change. And soon. The hospital waiting room was eerily quiet as I sat, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. The events of the evening replayed in my mind. Richard's fall, the frantic 911 call, the ambulance ride. I'd tried calling Mark and Patricia multiple times, but they hadn't answered. A doctor approached, his face grave. Mrs. Thompson? I'm Dr. Patel. I've been treating your father-in-law. I stood quickly. How is he? Is Richard okay? Dr. Patel sighed. Mr. Thompson has suffered a minor stroke. We've stabilized him, but he'll need round-the-clock care for the next few weeks. My heart sank. Can I see him? As I entered Richard's room, the sight of him hooked up to various machines made my chest tighten. His eyes fluttered open as I approached. Anna, he whispered, his voice weak. You're here. I took his hand gently. Of course I'm here, Richard. I wouldn't be anywhere else. He squeezed my hand. You're the only one who truly cares, you know. Mark and Patricia. They're only interested in what I can give them. Before I could respond, a commotion outside caught my attention. Mark and Patricia burst into the room, still dressed in their dinner finery. Father, Mark exclaimed, his voice more annoyed than concerned. What's the meaning of this? You've ruined our evening. Patricia glared at me. I thought we told you to take care of him. How could you let this happen? I felt a surge of anger. Let this happen? I begged you not to leave him alone. Dr. Patel, who had followed them in, cleared his throat. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, your father has suffered a stroke. He'll need specialized care for the next few weeks. Mark's face paled. Specialized care? That sounds expensive. Patricia waved her hand dismissively. Nonsense. Anna can handle it. That's why she's here, after all. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm not a trained nurse, Patricia. Richard needs professional care. Well, we certainly can't afford to hire someone, Mark snapped. You'll just have to figure it out. Richard's voice, though weak, cut through the argument. Enough. Anna has been more of a family to me than either of you. If anyone's going to make decisions about my care, it's her. The room fell silent. Patricia's face turned an alarming shade of red, while Mark looked like he'd been slapped. Now see here, father, Mark began, but Richard cut him off. No, you see here. I'm tired of how you two treat Anna. She's been nothing but kind and caring, and you treat her like a servant. Well, no more. He turned to me, his eyes filled with determination. Anna, there's something I need to tell you. Something important about the company and my will. Patricia gasped. Richard, you can't be serious. But before Richard could continue, the monitors started beeping frantically. Dr. Patel rushed to his side, calling for assistance. You need to leave, a nurse said, ushering us out of the room. We need space to work. As we stood in the hallway, the tension was palpable. Patricia rounded on me, her eyes blazing. What have you done? She hissed. What lies have you been feeding Richard? I stood my ground. I've done nothing but care for him, which is more than I can say for either of you. Mark grabbed my arm. This isn't over, Anna. Whatever game you're playing, it stops now. As they stormed off, I leaned against the wall, my mind reeling. What had Richard been about to tell me? And more importantly, how much worse were things going to get? I pulled out my phone, my fingers hovering over my father's number. It was time to tell him everything. I couldn't face this alone anymore. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of Richard's heart monitor. I sat by his bedside, holding his frail hand, my mind still reeling from the events of the past few days. Mark and Patricia had barely visited, citing work commitments and social obligations. Richard stirred, his eyes fluttering open. Anna, he whispered, you're still here. I smiled softly. Of course. I wouldn't leave you alone. He squeezed my hand weakly. There's something I need to tell you. It's about the company, and you. My heart raced. What is it, Richard? I've decided to leave you a significant portion of my estate, he said, his voice growing stronger. You've shown me more kindness in these past months than Mark or Patricia have in years. I gasped, shocked by his words. Richard, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, he replied. You deserve it. But be careful. Mark and Patricia, they won't take this news well. As if on cue, the door burst open. Mark and Patricia stormed in, their faces contorted with rage. We heard everything, Mark snarled. How dare you try to manipulate my father, Anna? Patricia's eyes blazed with fury. You gold-digging little tramp. We welcomed you into our home, and this is how you repay us. I stood up, my legs shaking. I didn't manipulate anyone. Richard made this decision on his own. Lies! Patricia shrieked. You've been plotting this all along, haven't you? Mark stepped forward, thrusting a document into my hands. Well, your little plan ends now. Here's a divorce decree. Sign it and get out of our lives. I stared at the paper, my mind spinning. Divorce? But we're married. Aren't we? A cruel smile spread across Patricia's face. Oh, you poor, naive girl. Did you really think Mark would marry someone like you? We needed a caretaker for Richard, nothing more. The room seemed to tilt as the truth hit me. All this time I'd been living a lie. I wasn't Mark's wife. I was their servant, their pawn in a cruel game. Richard's voice cut through the chaos. That's enough. Anna has been nothing but kind and caring. She deserves everything I'm giving her and more. Mark leaned over the bed, his voice low and menacing. Think carefully, father. You wouldn't want to make any rash decisions in your condition. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Were they actually threatening Richard? Get out, I said, my voice shaking with anger. Both of you, get out now. To my surprise, they left, but not before Patricia hissed. This isn't over, Anna. Not by a long shot. As the door closed behind them, I collapsed into the chair, my whole body trembling. Richard reached out, patting my hand gently. "I'm so sorry, my dear," he said. "I had no idea they would stoop so low." I looked at him, tears streaming down my face. "What am I going to do, Richard? They've taken everything from me." He smiled weakly. "Not everything. You still have your integrity, and now you'll have the means to fight back. Don't let them win, Anna. Promise me you won't give up." I nodded, a newfound determination rising within me. "I promise, Richard. I won't let them get away with this." As I sat there holding Richard's hand, I knew I had a choice to make. I could walk away, leave this toxic family behind and try to rebuild my life. Or I could stay and fight, not just for myself, but for Richard and for justice. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from my father. "Anna, I'm worried about you. Please call me." I took a deep breath. It was time to tell my father everything. It was time to fight back. My hands trembled as I stood before the clerk at City Hall. After my conversation with Dad, I knew I had to uncover the truth about my supposed marriage to Mark. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the clerk said, frowning at her computer screen. "I can't find any record of a marriage between you and Mark Thompson." My heart sank. "That's impossible. We were married 2 years ago. There must be some mistake." She shook her head. "I've checked all our records. There's nothing here." I stumbled out of the building, my mind reeling. How could this be? The ceremony, the guests, the rings, had it all been a lie? As I drove home, memories flooded back. The rushed wedding, the lack of paperwork, Patricia's insistence on handling all the details. It all made sense now, in the most horrifying way possible. I pulled into the driveway, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. As I entered the house, I found Mark and Patricia in the living room, huddled over some documents. "Well, well," Patricia sneered. "If it isn't our little gold digger. Come to beg for forgiveness." I stood tall, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I know the truth. We were never legally married, were we, Mark?" Mark's face paled, but Patricia just laughed. "Took you long enough to figure it out. Did you really think my son would marry someone like you?" "Why?" I demanded. "Why go through all this deception?" Mark finally spoke, his voice cold. "We needed someone to care for father. You were convenient. And cheap." The cruelty of their words hit me like a physical blow. "So all this time I've just been, what? Your unpaid servant." Patricia's smile was vicious. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. You had a roof over your head, didn't you? Food on your plate? Really, Anna, you should be thanking us." I felt a surge of anger unlike anything I'd ever experienced. "Thanking you? For lying to me? For treating me like dirt? For using me?" "Watch your tone," Mark warned. "Remember, you have no legal standing here. This is our house. Our family. You're nothing." I took a deep breath, thinking of Richard in the hospital, of all the months I'd spent caring for him while these two plotted and schemed. "You're wrong," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I may not be legally married to Mark, but I am family to Richard. And he's made his wishes clear." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" I smiled, feeling a sense of power for the first time in years. "Richard's will. He's leaving me a significant portion of his estate, including shares in the company." The color drained from both their faces. Mark lunged forward, grabbing my arm. "You're lying. Father would never dash." "Let go of me," I said, wrenching my arm free. "It's the truth. And there's nothing you can do about it." Patricia's voice was shrill with panic. "We'll contest it. We'll say you manipulated him. You'll never see a penny." I headed for the stairs, pausing to look back at them. "Go ahead and try. But remember, I know all your secrets now. And I'm not afraid to use them." As I packed my bags, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Dad. "Just heard from the lawyer. Everything's in order. You ready to come home?" I looked around the room that had been my prison for the past 2 years. Then I thought of Richard, of the truth I now knew, and of the battle ahead. I texted back, "Not yet, Dad. I have unfinished business here. But soon." As I zipped up my suitcase, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. The life I thought I had was gone, but a new one was just beginning. And this time I was going to write my own story. I paced nervously in my father's living room, my hands shaking as I recounted everything that had happened. Dad listened intently, his face growing darker with each revelation. "Anna," he said finally, his voice tight with anger, "why didn't you tell me sooner?" I sank onto the couch, tears welling in my eyes. "I was ashamed, Dad. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could make it work." He moved to sit beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "You have nothing to be ashamed of. It's Mark and Patricia who should be ashamed. What they've done is despicable." Just then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Richard's nurse. "Mr. Thompson asking for you. Urgent." I jumped up, my heart racing. "Dad, I have to go. Richard needs me." "I'm coming with you," he said, grabbing his keys. At the hospital, we found Richard sitting up in bed, looking more alert than I'd seen him in weeks. His eyes lit up when he saw me, then narrowed as he noticed my father. "Anna, thank goodness," Richard said. "And you must be Daniel. I've heard so much about you." Dad stepped forward, shaking Richard's hand. "Mr. Thompson, I wish we were meeting under better circumstances." Richard nodded gravely. "Indeed. Anna, I've made a decision. I want to leave the company to your father." I gasped. "Richard, what are you saying?" He smiled weakly. "Your father is a good man, Anna. I've done my research. He'll run the company ethically, treat the employees fairly. Unlike Mark and Patricia." Dad looked stunned. "Mr. Thompson, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll do it," Richard urged. "For Anna's sake. For justice." Before Dad could respond, the door burst open. Mark and Patricia stormed in, their faces contorted with rage. "What is the meaning of this?" Patricia shrieked. "Who are these people?" Richard's voice was steel. "This is Anna's father, Daniel, and he's about to become the new owner of Thompson Enterprises." Mark lunged forward, his fists clenched. "You can't do this, Father. The company is my birthright." I stepped between them, my voice shaking but determined. "Back off, Mark. You lost any right to this company when you treated your father like a burden and me like a servant." Patricia's eyes blazed with fury. "You little witch. You've poisoned Richard's mind against us." "No, Patricia," Richard said calmly. "You and Mark did that all on your own." Suddenly, Richard's face contorted in pain. He clutched his chest, gasping for air. "Richard!" I cried, rushing to his side. The room erupted into chaos. Nurses rushed in, pushing us aside. I watched in horror as they worked to stabilize Richard, my heart pounding in my ears. As they wheeled Richard out for emergency tests, I turned to face Mark and Patricia. Their faces were a mix of shock, anger, and... was that fear? "This isn't over," Mark hissed. "We'll fight this in court. We'll destroy you both." Dad stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "I don't think you will, Mark. Not unless you want the truth about your treatment of Anna and your father to become public knowledge." Patricia's face paled. "You wouldn't dare." I met her gaze, feeling a strength I'd never known before. "Try us." As Mark and Patricia stormed out, hurling threats and insults, I turned to my father. "Dad, what do we do now?" He squeezed my shoulder reassuringly. "Now we fight. For Richard, for justice, and for your future." I nodded, a mix of determination and fear coursing through me. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, I felt like I had a chance to win. The conference room of Thompson Enterprises buzzed with tension as I sat beside my father, facing Mark and Patricia across the polished mahogany table. Richard's lawyer, Mr. Jameson, cleared his throat. "Let's begin," he said, opening a thick folder. As per Mr. Richard Thompson's final will and testament, the ownership of Thompson Enterprises is to be transferred to Mr. Daniel Harper, effective immediately. Mark's fist slammed on the table. "This is preposterous. Father wasn't in his right mind when he made this decision." I leaned forward, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Richard knew exactly what he was doing, Mark. He wanted the company in responsible hands. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Responsible? You manipulated a sick old man. You conniving little dash. That's enough, Dad interrupted, his tone firm. Mr. Jameson, please continue. As Mr. Jameson read through the details of the transfer, I watched Mark and Patricia's faces contort with rage and disbelief. It was really happening. The company they'd taken for granted, the wealth they'd assumed would always be theirs, was slipping through their fingers. Suddenly, Patricia stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. This is a farce. We'll contest this in court. We'll expose your lies, Anna. You'll regret the day you ever set foot in our lives. I felt a surge of courage I didn't know I possessed. Go ahead, Patricia. Contest it. But remember, I have evidence of how you and Mark treated Richard, how you neglected him, how you schemed to keep me as an unpaid servant. Do you really want all that to come out in court? Mark's face paled. You're bluffing. You have nothing. I pulled out my phone, playing a recording of one of Patricia's cruel tirades against Richard. The room fell silent as her vitriolic words filled the air. Mr. Jameson cleared his throat. I believe this meeting is concluded. Mr. Harper, if you'll sign here, please. As Dad signed the papers, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. It was done. We'd won. But as we stood to leave, Mark blocked our path, his eyes wild with desperation. You can't do this to us. This company is our life, our legacy. Dad's voice was calm but firm. It's not your legacy anymore, Mark. But I'm willing to offer you and your mother positions in the company, if you're willing to work honestly and ethically. Patricia scoffed. Work for you? Never. I watched as Mark hesitated, conflict clear on his face. For a moment I saw a glimmer of the man I thought I'd married. Someone who, deep down, might have a shred of decency. But then Patricia grabbed his arm. Come, Mark. We don't need their charity. We'll start over. Show them what real success looks like. As they stormed out, hurling final threats and insults, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. It was over, but at what cost? Dad squeezed my shoulder. You okay, sweetheart? I nodded, tears welling in my eyes. I wish it hadn't come to this. I wish they could have seen what they were doing, how they were hurting Richard, hurting me. I know, Dad said softly. But you did the right thing. You stood up for yourself, for Richard's wishes. I'm proud of you. As we left the building, I took a deep breath of the crisp autumn air. A new chapter was beginning, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't truly the end. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This isn't over, Anna. Watch your back. I showed Dad the message, my hands shaking slightly. He frowned. We'll need to be careful. They won't give up easily. I nodded, a mix of determination and fear coursing through me. The battle was won, but the war, it seemed, was far from over. 6 months had passed since the company transfer, and I stood at the podium in Thompson Enterprises' main conference room, addressing the employees. Dad sat nearby, beaming with pride. As many of you know, the past year has brought significant changes to our company. I began, my voice steady. Today, I'm pleased to announce that under new management, our profits have increased by 30%, and employee satisfaction is at an all-time high. Applause filled the room, and I caught sight of Mark slipping in at the back. His once impeccable suit looked rumpled, his face haggard. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away. As the meeting concluded, I made my way towards him. Mark, I'm surprised to see you here. He sighed heavily. I came to apologize, Anna, and to ask for a job. Any job. I studied his face, searching for signs of deceit. What about Patricia? Mother's in a care facility, he said, his voice cracking. She had a breakdown after we lost everything. I've been trying to make ends meet, but... He trailed off, looking defeated. For a moment, I felt a flicker of satisfaction at their downfall. But then I remembered Richard's kindness, his belief in second chances. Mark, I said softly, I can't forget what you and Patricia did, but I believe in redemption. There's an entry-level position open in accounting. If you're willing to work hard and prove yourself, it's yours." His eyes widened in disbelief. "Anna, I thank you. I don't deserve this." "No, you don't," I agreed. "But everyone deserves a chance to make things right." As Mark left to fill out the paperwork, Dad approached. "You sure about this, sweetheart?" I nodded. "It's what Richard would have wanted. And it's what I need to do to truly move on." Later that evening, I visited Richard's grave, placing fresh flowers by his headstone. "We did it, Richard," I whispered. "The company's thriving, and we're helping people. I hope you're proud." A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and I felt a sense of peace wash over me. As I turned to leave, I saw a familiar figure approaching Patricia, looking frail and subdued. My body tensed, ready for confrontation. But as she drew closer, I saw tears in her eyes. "Anna," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I came to pay my respects, and to apologize." I stood in stunned silence as Patricia continued. "What we did to you was unforgivable. I see that now. Losing everything. It opened my eyes to the person I'd become. Part of me wanted to lash out, to make her feel the pain she'd caused me. But looking at her now, I saw a broken woman who'd lost everything, including her son's respect. "Patricia," I said carefully, "I can't forget what happened, but I forgive you, for Richard's sake and for my own." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Anna. You truly are the daughter Richard deserved." As Patricia walked away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The anger and resentment I'd been carrying melted away, replaced by a sense of closure. I looked back at Richard's grave one last time. "You were right, Richard. Love and compassion are stronger than hate and greed." I'll never forget that lesson. Driving home, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. From a naive young woman trapped in a web of lies to a strong, independent leader who'd found the strength to forgive. As I pulled into my driveway, I saw Dad waiting on the porch, a warm smile on his face. I knew then that whatever challenges lay ahead, I had the strength and support to face them. "What you sow, so shall you reap," I murmured to myself. And I was determined to sow kindness, compassion, and justice in every aspect of my life from that day forward.